Over the past 4 years, we have witnessed a boom in self-sufficiency. We hear a lot of talk about self-sustainability, food forests, homesteading, and off-grid living. And yes, most of the people who tell us about their off-grid living do so on the grid, right here on the internet, using technology and electricity. For that reason, I've come up with a new term to describe my family's lifestyle. We call it soft grid living. We live on a tropical fruit farm that's walking distance from Everglades National Park. We get our electricity from Florida Power and Light, and we are literally the end of the line. 2 weeks ago, a storm blew that power pole down and squashed this tree right here behind me. Of course, that also knocked out our power and our internet. It also started this huge fire. I observed that my priorities for that day, the tasks I was focusing on, we're getting FPL to come and restore my electricity, getting AT&T to come out and restore my internet. In other words, I was focused on getting back on the grid. For us, it's not about being off the grid. It's about not being dependent on the grid. We live a soft grid lifestyle. One of the ways I'm dependent on the grid is water for my house. We're on a well and we use an electric pump. If the power goes out, I got nothing to run that electric pump. But I still have a way to get running water into my house. I can come out here, fire up my diesel pump, and backload it right into the house, right into our tank, and we have running water. Then as a backup to the backup, or if I only need a little bit of water, I can come out with a bucket and hand pump it. As for food, this garden gives us more than we can eat. We've got tomatoes, lettuce, peppers, turnips, radishes, beans, okra. Ooh, right, hey, look at this. Our first passion fruit of the year. This guy in the summertime will turn purple and be delicious. As if that wasn't enough, we've got clumps and clumps of bananas that gives us hundreds of pounds per year. We can survive just off the bananas alone. And all of this food production creates a surplus, which we trade our neighbor over there for goat cheese. We trade our neighbor over here for milk and cheese from her cows. We trade my neighbor down here to the south for eggs from his chickens. And then, of course, the bulk of what I grow, we sell. Up till now, everything I talked about is exactly the things people think about when they talk about homesteading, off-grid living, self-sufficiency, self-sustainability, right? You tell someone, close their eyes and picture a family living on a homestead. What's that like? They're gonna tell you, oh, there's hay bales and there's chickens clucking and there's a guy walking around with a pitchfork, you know, and a straw hat with a piece of wheat in his mouth. When in fact, the true homesteader is probably covered in grease up to his elbows. Because if you truly are gonna be self-sufficient, you have to get good mechanically. You have to understand the way electricity works. You have to understand plumbing, and you have to do all your repairs and maintenance yourself. I'm dependent on the outside world for internet, electricity, and to some extent my water. But when I lose that connection, I can still get my own water. I can still connect to the internet. I can still generate my own electricity. But if I need a new set of brakes on my truck, and I can't get my truck into the shop for another week, and that shop tells me it's a $1,200 job when I know I can get the parts for 200 bucks. And the last time I used that shop, they told me the job would take a day and it took 4 days. And then I had to bring it back to them twice after to fix it. If I can't eliminate that from my life, then I am nowhere even close to self-sufficient. So I came out today to put a new belt on my mower. This is the belt that drives the blades because the old one snapped. Snapped yesterday, but I already had one on hand because one of the things you need to know if you're going to be self-sustaining, if you're going to be off the grid, is you need to know what your consumables are. There's things that are consumable, and there's other things that just break. So consumables are things like belts, chains, fluids, filters, tires, brake pads. It's all stuff that you know is eventually going to be replaced. It's all stuff that you fix on a schedule. This belt, I snapped it yesterday. I was already tired, but if I wanted, I could have came in, grabbed a replacement off my shelf, fixed the belt, and gone out and finished the job. The alternative would have been wait for business hours, call the tractor supply company, schedule a pickup. Hopefully they show up on the day of the scheduled appointment. I wouldn't even hope for them to show up on time because I guarantee you they won't. Hopefully the guy listens when I tell him exactly what's wrong with my mower. Hopefully, knowing the guy ain't gonna listen, the guy gives them the little piece of paper I wrote down of what to be fixed. And hopefully they call me within 3 to 4 days like they promised to tell me my mower is fixed. And hopefully they only fix the things I asked them to fix, and they didn't go ahead and fix things I didn't tell them to touch. Then when you eventually fight through all that stuff, you're gonna pay, they're gonna give you a receipt, then someone's gonna try to sell you a new piece of equipment, wasting even more of your time. And unfortunately, the world we live in is getting more and more and more like that. Once you get comfortable with routine maintenance, changing fluids, changing consumables, the next step is to get into troubleshooting and break fix. This chainsaw is run by a tiny little gas combustion engine. I have an even smaller chainsaw back there, a weed eater, another little pole saw, a leaf blower, and then I got these 2 generators. Guess what they run on? Gasoline combustion engines. A little bigger than the chainsaw engines, but they work exactly the same. This mower, it's a 24 horsepower Briggs & Stratton gasoline combustion engine. 6 horse Mercury outboard, gasoline combustion engine. These 2 VWs you see behind me run on a much bigger gasoline combustion engine. And this Dodge Dakota, a bigger still gasoline combustion engine. Yes, they all have their nuances. Yes, they all have their unique specifications. But if you get a good understanding of how a gasoline combustion engine works, you might be able to fix something and get yourself back to work within the hour. Whereas if you don't, that piece of equipment could be down for more than 2 weeks while you wait for someone else to get to it, which means whatever job you were working on has to wait 2 weeks, which means whatever money or source of food or whatever benefit you were going to get from that job is also delayed by 2 weeks. Now, if you're someone who hopes to be a homesteader someday, hopes to be off-grid, hopes to be more self-sufficient, start doing this stuff now. Figure out what the routine maintenance on everything you own is. Your air conditioner at your house, your vehicles, whatever types of equipment, power tools, whatever it is you have that requires routine maintenance, learn how to do that. And by doing that, you're going to start to develop technical competence. It's just like practicing a sport or practicing a musical instrument. In order to accomplish this, you need to start accumulating tools. This little cheapy tool set right here is about everything you need to get started. I got this as an impulse buy at a hardware store. I was in there getting something else, and next to the counter, I saw this little tool kit. I opened it up and looked in, and I said, damn, this has about 80% of what I use on any given job. Tools follow 2 standards for sizing. You have metric and standard. And you're gonna need metric and standard for every tool you have. You're going to need a set of wrenches, probably multiple set of wrenches. And here we have, I don't have my glasses on, but this looks like the metric and this looks like the standard size. And these run from, the wrenches run on the metric side from 8 millimeters to 15, and on the standard side from 5/16 to 5/8. Then you have your socket set. That too is divided into metric and standard. And I think my biggest runs to about 19 or 20 millimeters. The smallest is tiny. Let's see, the smallest here is, what does that say? 4 millimeter. You got small, medium, and large. You got all the extensions you need. You got Allen wrenches here, both in standard and metric. A set of channel locks, which is a big set of pliers, really. Over here we have an adjustable wrench, which I don't think I've ever used. A needle nose pliers, which I use all the time. And then 2 flathead screwdrivers, 2 Phillips head screwdrivers. And then this generic driver that's got this socket in it that allows you to choose all kinds of different heads from this collection here. This is a great toolbox when you gotta fix something and just grab it and go. Like I said, it's got about 80% of what I need for any given job that I do. Now, while that little toolbox is a great start, you're gonna need more tools. And I have a tool chest here, and I've been accumulating tools my entire adult life. So let's see, in the top drawer here, I've got my power tool. So I've got a grinder, which is a pretty essential power tool. A drill, which you can't live without. And I like to have at least 1 corded drill. And I like to have a few cordless as well. Another very valuable and versatile power tool is this little circular saw, this little handheld circular saw. You can do a lot with it. For me as a farmer, I don't do a lot of woodworking. I don't do much with wood, so I don't really need like table saws and band saws in a wood shop. But having something like this does come in handy. And then the more you go, the more specialized you get. You wind up with things like steering wheel pullers that you only use like once every 10 years. All that I've showed you right there, that takes care of about 90% of my needs. Now, every now and then, you need some whack tool like this little puller here, or this little device here that pushes a brake piston back into the caliper. But as you encounter those, you accumulate that little tool and then you have it for the rest of your life. And like most new skills, once you get comfortable, it's time to challenge yourself and learn something new. In this case, welding. I eventually got to like the third or fourth time I had to call in a welder to come out here to the farm and fix something for me. And I watched what he was doing and I thought, you know what? I probably can't do it as neatly as him, as cleanly, as good looking as him. But as far as the functionality of what that guy's doing, I think I could do that. And once again, I'd rather do the job myself because when something breaks, I want to fix it right away. I want to get up and running right away. I don't want to wait days for a guy to get here and then he doesn't show up and then chase him and then he finally shows up and then I got to pay him money and then he didn't do the job all the way and I got to get him back. I want to do it myself. So I went down to Harbor Freight. I got myself, I think, the second from the bottom level welder they had, nothing fancy. Went on YouTube, watched a bunch of tutorials on how to learn to weld, subscribed to a welding school channel and followed some of their instructions. I went out and got some scrap metal and I taught myself to weld. Now when I need a welding job, I don't have to call someone. I can get it done myself. Like I said, that little incident where we lost our electric a couple weeks ago inspired me to really just sit down and think about how self-sustaining are we out here on the farm. And in thinking about that, I uncovered some things I thought I would like to share with you. And to review those things, they are, yes, you have to be able to supply your own water. You have to be able to supply your own food. You should be able to supply a surplus of food so you could barter and trade for other food or sell it for cash. While not necessary, it's very easy and inexpensive to have a little generator to create some electricity for yourself. Then we talked about the importance of mechanical skills, the importance of handyman skills. We talked about learning how to do your own routine maintenance. And then after you've cut your teeth on that, learning how to go out and do break fix repair. We talked about what a good starter toolkit for you would be and how you could grow and expand that kit as you continue on your journey to self-sufficiency. We talked about the importance of maintaining your own inventory and having reliable suppliers. And we also talked about how you could learn skills from online tutorials and then just go out and practice them and get good at them. As I said at the beginning, we do not live off-grid, we live soft-grid. We are pretty attached to the grid, but if the grid fails or we want to go off, we could survive indefinitely. And probably my most important attachment to the grid is the website where I sell our fruit, which is guacfarm.com. Guacfarm.com. That's where we sell our avocados, our mangoes, our sapodilla, our mamey, our monstera deliciosa, whatever tropical fruit we grow that happens to be in season. We also sell our shirts and hats, and nothing makes me happier than when someone buys a shirt and then sends me a pic and posts it to me through social media. Another connection to the grid, by the way. And this year, we are also going to start selling cuttings from our tropical fruit trees. So if you want to expand the variety of your tropical fruit collection, maybe I'll have some cuttings for sale that you would like to graft onto some of your seedlings. As I said earlier, I got to go replace the belt on my mower. While I go do that, you go to guacfarm.com, and I will see you on the next video.